Today we have very, I think, that's my feeling, we have much more materialist people in neuroscience than in quantum physics, for example. So my first question is, why do you believe that there are more materialist scientists in neuroscience than in astrophysics or quantum physics, for example? Who wants to answer to this question first? A question for all of you. I want to hear you. Mario, you have to take the microphone here. I think it will work. Allô, allô?
Réponse très simple.
Oui?
Parce qu'ils ne comprennent pas la physique quantique.
Parce qui?
Ils ne comprennent pas la physique quantique ou ils ne s'y intéressent pas.
D'accord. Eben, answer. What there is much more materialist in neuroscience, do you believe? Why?
I think that
it's work? Yeah. Push it. Yeah, it's working.
it is. I'm not sure. I think it's just a slow process of waking people up to a bigger picture of what needs to be studied. But in many ways, it's kind of the simpler, the materialist techniques and kind of theories are a little bit more simple and straightforward, although they don't really explain the question. So as we shift more to a quantum-informed neuroscience, I think we'll start getting much better answers. But that involves a much bigger theater of investigation in terms of top-down causality and kind of conscious effects and conscious abilities of discernment.
And you, what do you think about your colleagues, about the fact there's many materialist people and in philosopher and of neuroscience? We received, in this stage, for example, some months ago, there was Daniel Dennett. It was perhaps one of his last speech here in Benguerir, and there's many materialist people. So why do you believe there's so many materialists in neuroscience? Do you have an explanation?
Can you hear this?
Yeah.
If I understand your question right, I think it actually falls into a larger category of biologists, not just neurobiologists. Yeah. And it's because the variety of reasons, but one of the main ones in neurobiology is that most productive work in neurobiology is being conducted at...
Microphone, close your mouth, please. No, it's okay, close your mouth.
Most productive work in neurobiology is being done at the level of molecular biology, more very fundamental, physically based systems. And as you go into systems neurobiology, you see more interest in broader ideas.
Perhaps we can ask the question, is perhaps it's much more complex to study, you mentioned biology also and not neuroscience, that's very important. In fact, in biology also you have Richard Dawkins, you have many materialist people. Perhaps it's because you need a more advanced science to study biology and neurology than to study just matter and planet and galaxy. And perhaps it's for this reason that the new paradigm arrive first in physics, astrophysics, or mathematics, and after in biology and neurology. What do you think about this hypothesis? You see the idea that, in fact, neurology, the living science are more complex than material science.
Well, that's the challenge. For example, when I was reporting on the quantum biology of photosynthesis and human sense of smell and bird migration, those are incredibly complex experiments, and I just think that the people who are capable of doing that, very competent quantum thinking biologists, at least at our current state of development, are just few and far between. But I think there's no reason why, because of these early successes, why we won't start seeing a lot more of that coming in the next few years.
Bill, a question for you. Outside what we heard with them about, I will say, advanced ideas and speculation, what are for you, outside from your presentation, what are for you the most the strongest point about the fact that human person is not just a neuronal produce, and that, for example, you believe in life after death, you as a Christian, so I can ask you why you believe in life after death as a neuroscientist, because you have a sort of material vision of science, and you have, of course, your belief in a soul. What is your way to put this together?
Well, first off, science, if science could be quantified, and you think about it as the continent of North America, we've landed on Plymouth Rock and we're about 30 miles into the continent. We got a long way to go, and I think we'll develop some new tools to explore phenomena that we haven't yet developed. Science is a young science, if you will. It's a young discipline, and compared to the reality and the evident mysteries that are out there, there's so much we don't understand that I think we just have to have humility about these matters. But I'm not going to give up believing in things that I believe for other reasons than what you might call empirical evidence.
Yeah, I think it's as you say, it's a beginning of a journey, so we must have humility. Yes, Eben, you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think, at this stage of the game, we're at a point where it's still very challenging to come up with kind of double-blind, randomized studies and things like that, and performed in a strict kind of scientific method. And truth be told, in a lot of the data I was sharing that about near-death experiences, we really have to depend on what currently would be classed as anecdotes. But I would point out that anecdotes equal data. And even though it's maybe not fashioned in a strict kind of scientific form where you're testing a hypothesis, it is such a complex and deep subject, especially when you're presented with this empirical data, that I think we're just beginning the journey, really, to unravel it and try to make sense of it, start designing scientific experiments that will give us the ability to formulate better theories, things like that. But at this time, there's a tremendous amount of anecdotal data that lines up, that's congruent, that makes sense, at least in terms of being something that's a common occurrence among people. And that's what we need to pay attention to, is these, at this stage, these complex anecdotes are maybe the best we can get, but the better sense we can make of them, the better we'll be able to come up with true scientific experiments to do double-blind comparisons and things like that.
Concerning this, Mario, what do you answer when people say that extraordinary claims, and you make some extraordinary claims in your talk, both of you, Eben and Mario, some extraordinary claims need extraordinary positive data, that in fact the same data can, for example, I showed the result in this morning of Robert Gian in Princeton University at 0.1% chance to be by chance, and it's not enough for some people. So what do you answer to these people who say that you need more extraordinary results?
Same kind of people were saying the same thing 300 years ago, as noted by John Eccles. Promissory materialism, that's what he called that, promissory materialism, right? Yeah.
Eccles, yeah?
Yeah, Eccles. He was referring to these people.
You can develop.
There's never enough evidence for this kind of people with mindset.
You know, I have personally known Sir John Eccles, the Nobel laureate in medicine, and his famous idea. Can you explain this idea of promising materialist? What it is for him? It was very quite funny.
Well, it was the idea. It came from French philosophers, La Métrie in particular. And it's the idea that you always you need more proof. There was not enough, but back then, during the 17th century, these people were saying that they didn't have perhaps the technology required to have enough evidence, but that eventually one day they would have enough evidence to be able to explain everything in the universe using a materialist framework. That was the idea.
In fact, the sentence from Eccles, as I heard it, was the materialists promise us that we will have an explanation, a materialist explanation of consciousness, even if we have absolutely no idea how we will have it. That was, yes, Evan.
John, I'd simply like to add, I would discuss in my talk the work of Jessica Utz, the very renowned statistician who was giving a presidential address to the American Statistical Association in 2015. I think there were around 6,000 statisticians and scientists present. And she asked them, after she delivers this p less than 10 to the minus 20th in explaining remote viewing, that it's extraordinarily present. This is not imagination, it's not chance, it's not make-believe, but a very strong statistical signal. And she asked the audience, what would you like to prove this? More data or a personal experience? And most of them responded they wanted their own personal experience. And I don't know what that tells you about, maybe
Yes.
they just don't want to spend all the time reviewing the literature because it's a pretty deep literature. But there's no question a personal experience can really go a very long way. I would love to give you my experience, but I don't want to give you a near lethal case of bacterial meningoencephalitis. But the key
Yes,
is
but
meditation and centering prayer, going within mind, are beautiful ways of exploring consciousness in a profound way that we can do in a scientific setting. People can also do it individually, because you don't have to have a near-death experience to come to the very same knowledge I know about the reality of this infinitely loving force at the core of the universe. But exploring consciousness through meditation, centering prayer, kind of having those quiet moments where you relate with that God force of the universe can be very helpful at kind of growing to a richer understanding.
What you say, thank you. What you say is quite amazing. Because if you understand what he said that 6,000 scientists who are experts in statistics answer publicly, most of them, that we don't believe in data even if the data prove absolutely this phenomenon. We will never believe in data even if we have all the data of the possible. We will believe only if we experience it. It sounds completely unscientific.
It does. I know William Phillips responded that way. They don't sound like scientists. I would just say, yes, it may be a challenging literature, and it sounds to me like they maybe don't have the time or want to make the time for it. It's not a priority. But, it was forced on me. I had to respond. I can't just ignore such an incredible personal experience. But this is why an open mind can be very helpful, but it's important to point out that the tools for this kind of exploration are something we all have as conscious sentient beings.
Okay, so the time is running out, so I will ask all of you, a last sentence. You want to say something about your definition of the human person, why you believe the human person is not a machine, something about to express your deepest vision about the human person. If you can do this in one sentence, I know it's difficult. You want to begin? What is a human being in one sentence for you?
Yeah, and I'm saying that based not only on scientific data, but on personal experiences. Like, because I've had mystical experiences throughout my life.
Yeah.
I will say the same thing as Théard de Chardin. Human being is it's a spiritual being inhabiting a physical body, having a physical experience.
Bill, what is your definition of the human person in one sentence? How can you define human person in one sentence?
I gave 30 minutes on it.
Yes, but now I ask you a summary in one sentence.
In one sentence?
To conclude.
I think we're the part of the whole that can think the whole. We are mysteriously capable of comprehending not just the pixels or the pattern, but getting the picture.
Thank you. And Eben?
I would say that a human being is a holographic element of the universe, such that they share meaning and purpose and existence with all of the universe, but presented as a sentient being.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of them.